So I'd like to visit a little bit about your impressions of the film that we just saw. Lori, you were one of the early actors in the drama that we observed. You had the distinct privilege of filing suit against the city of Houston. Did that make you anxious?
Filing that suit?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, I chaired the task force that filed suit against the city of Houston to encourage the city to order new buses, their new buses with lifts. And
what was the compelling, what moved you to that point? I mean, were you just frustrated because you'd been with this group that had been asking so long, and
yes,
finally?
I mean, for 12 years we've been trying to get the city to order buses that had lifts on them. And we found out, and this is when we were working on the passage of the ADA, and most of us, the people within the disability community, thought that the ADA was going to be passed within a year or two. And the city was getting ready to order 326 buses. I can't believe I remember that number, but I do. 326 buses that were going to be on the road for at least 20 years in the city of Houston. So that would have meant that 20 years there would have been buses that were inaccessible. And then after that, those buses would have gone to rural communities. And so for 20 more years, those buses would have been inaccessible.
I didn't realize that you were thinking ahead so far as to consider what happens to our disposed vehicles after they're off the streets.
That was a big decision. Mm-hmm.
So when the Metro announced the change, were you surprised by that, or did you think it would be settled? I mean,
I thought we were going to court, and I found out the day before. The lawyer that represented us called me at home that evening and said, they've settled, they've agreed. And
it made you happy.
I was very happy, very, very, very happy. And there were a lot of us that worked on
Maria,
that.
you actually joined the movement in the midst of all this action.
I did, and I was so young. It's hard to believe, you know, that so much time has gone by.
What was your early remembrances of the disability community in Houston and advocacy in particular?
Well, the very first and most important memory was me coming to HCIL, CBFL, as you know. The Coalition for Barrier-Free Living pretty much gave birth to Houston's independent living as we know it through the Centers for Independent Living, being that HCIL became the very first CIL in the state of Texas. So when I came in to the disability rights movement, being so young and being an immigrant, shy girl, as you kind of remember, which is hard to believe now.
Hard to believe,
right?
Yes.
Exactly, it's so hard to believe. But to me, the power of us coming together, that our advocacy abilities to create change within our own community, the realization that we deserve more.
Now, Maria, coming from your status as an immigrant and also from a minority community,
right?
One that doesn't necessarily promote, as we know, a lot of self-advocacy and outspoken behavior like this. Was this kind of a cultural shift you had to make?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. And it was an important one for me because it empowered me to become who I became eventually as a woman with a disability, as an advocate for disability rights. It shifted my gears from being that shy, quiet girl to being pretty much a powerful spokesperson for other minorities with disabilities.
Well, and
because if you remember back then, we were not as colorful as we are now.
No,
and I'm kind of like putting it nicely, right?
You've used your personal attributes to recruit and bring in many people to the movement. Do you feel that's your calling?
In part, yes. I think that regardless of race or abilities or disability, I think that my calling is to continued advocacy in the disability community in Houston. And I'm so proud of being part of this history, so proud.
Art, you're the youngster among us here today, I guess. You actually were looking for a job when you found Houston's transit issues, weren't you?
I was, Lex. I'm a native Houstonian. I came here I came to Houston Metro straight out of college, graduating from the University of North Texas State back then. And so yeah, I came looking for a job, started off part-time employee making $7.25 an hour. Happy to have a job and happy to help out.
What were you doing then?
I was taking calls. I was on the telephone, answering calls, scheduling transportation for folks. And again, as a native Houstonian, I was injured in a football accident in 1984. And who would have ever known that many, many, many years from that point that I'd be at this point. So when I look at the video, I'm truly humbled because I'm not only a benefactor and a trustee, but now when I look at the next generation, I'm becoming a mentor to the next generation of advocates and community service individuals. So
now, Art, if I remember correctly, the guy who hired you was a man named Jim Laughlin, who was the, Jim actually had the only disability-related job in Metro for many years.
That's correct. Jim Laughlin was just a true pioneer. He was a friend, a mentor to me, someone who I enjoyed learning from and who unfortunately passed away in 2007.
Did he ever tell you the story about how he got involved?
Jim told me a lot of stories. And you were in some of those stories.
So Art, Jim was, you know, he was out in those photographs we saw of people in the streets. Jim was one of us in the streets. I think when Bob Geyer was testifying before the city council, Jim was sitting right behind him, feeding him notes and so on. We went all together to the Office of Public Transportation after that city council meeting, and we confronted at that time the head of the Houston Transit Agency, Barry Goodman, who still lives in the area, I think. We confronted Mr. Goodman, and Jim was one of the spokespeople for us, saying, look, you know, why don't you all accommodate this part of the community? And the next thing we knew, Barry Goodman offered Jim a job.
Good move.
So he helped to pull together what Houston did in a transitional way, but the demonstrations were just going nowhere. Do you have data about that?
The demonstrations, as far as the public demonstrations?
Well, no. What happened is the Metro's predecessor, Hutran, decided that they would take a few accessible buses and run them on selected routes. And so with the help of the Brain Trust at Rice University, I mean, excuse me, but they suggested that they run the buses from the medical center to downtown to demonstrate how people with disabilities might or might not use them. Predictably, the outcome was?
Correct. Not a lot of ridership.
Exactly. There's not too many people checking out a Methodist and moving downtown, right?
Correct.
Jim actually had to summarize all that. And Lori, I guess that's about the time that CBFL got involved.
Yeah, that's true. We realized we were looking at that research and that data, and we decided that we really needed to do something.